Merely saying the word suicide makes a lot of people uncomfortable, so they don't talk about it. The reality is, suicide remains one of the top 10 leading causes of death in the United States, even though it is 100% preventable. But like with any major public health crisis, you must talk about the problem before you can work to eradicate it. On this week's Mental Health Timeout, Jacksonville Jaguars safety Doug Middleton joins me for an emotional conversation about the impact suicide and other adversity has had on his life. Thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with me, Doug. For those who don't know, you played your college ball at Appalachian State, and your NFL journey started 4 years ago when the New York Jets signed you as an undrafted free agent. It hasn't always been the easiest path for you, but there's a lot that people during this time, while they're, during this pandemic and there's uncertainty, that I think they can take from your journey and the ups and downs of it. 3 years ago, shortly before the start of your second mini camp with the Jets, you found out that someone you grew up with, played high school football with, and considered your best friend from the age of 7 had committed suicide. With so many people feeling depressed, anxious, and really just struggling during this time right now, I think it's important that we're taking care of ourselves mentally, but also when we can, looking out for each other. Looking back, were there any signs that your best friend, AJ Morrison, showed prior to his death that really illustrated how much he was struggling? And if so, what did that look like?
Yeah, from my best friend, AJ, we were best friends since, the age of 6. We grew up in the same neighborhood, really the same street. We shared a lot of firsts together, went to elementary school together, all the way up to high school, played, high school football together. And we spent a lot of good moments, a lot of tough moments together, learned a lot together. So, really throughout our entire journey, I was able to observe him and I knew what looked like him and I knew what wasn't him. And I knew, what he was going through and AJ, suffered a few traumatic events that, may have changed, his life and, some of the things that he experienced may have impacted him in a way that he fell into a state of severe depression. And once he got into that state, it was pretty obvious that he needed, some other help, some professional help. My mom has been a, clinician. She's worked with, young adults, student athletes, pretty much her entire career. And now she does mental health claims for Boeing. So that was one of the first resources that I reached out to as far as, just trying to get AJ some help. After I realized that, he was going to need a little bit more than that, we was having him kind of in and out the mental health hospital and really just trying to get, some help from that angle. And, he began to see a counselor and psychologist, to try to get him some help. And for some reason, those things wasn't, they weren't working. And no matter how much we could say, like, just, go speak to somebody, it doesn't always work like that. And for AJ, he could never really find somebody that he could identify closely with, somebody that he could, truly open up to and somebody that he felt like he could trust. And, he would, always ask me for help, like, please give me some help, please give me some help. And, I would try to find him the help that I knew that I had access to and what I thought could help him. And, I think that's a huge issue with our culture. Like, we know a lot of us are suffering, but it's tough to find those resources that may make the actual true difference. You can go talk to a counselor, you can go talk to a psychologist, but is that somebody that is really connecting with that individual, somebody that they're really able to open up to, and somebody that's able to get them and help them make progress? And for AJ, that that was the toughest thing. And, the months went by, where AJ was suffering from severe depression and you could obviously tell, like, it was weighing on him bad. Like, some days he didn't want to go outside. Some days he don't even want to brush his teeth. He felt ashamed sometimes to even go out to eat. And, as the times went on, it just started to get worse and worse. And then, there was some indication that things were getting better, and that he was making some progress. And I went down to, train for the off season in Miami. And I just remember, getting a call from him the day before his death, and him just sounding at peace, and knowing that I guess he had done as much as he could, and he felt like he tried as many different things to get help as he could, and it just wasn't working, and he just wanted the pain to stop. So the next day, I got a call from my dad and let me know that AJ had just suffered a death by suicide. And I can just remember speaking at his funeral, and a lot of emotions there, and really just trying to speak to a crowd that really didn't have a clue what was going on, like why he had just randomly died. 23-year-old. How did he just just die? Like, what happened? Why did he just kill himself? Like, what? And I'm trying to explain to them the different things about mental health that AJ was going through, and some of his circumstances. And during that time, like, as soon as I got done, the pastor got up and said, what we need to start doing, like, when you have issues like this, you just need to start, bringing it to the church and just praying about it, and that'll fix everything. And when he said that, that really stuck with me, and that's one of the big reasons that I want to start my foundation, because I want to bring education to our culture as far as mental health, and try to bring resources for people to actually get better. Because I think it's a combination of just like religious activities. Like, I think God put, people, professionals out here that can handle, mental health illnesses. And I think it's a combination of prayer and church and, those professionals, and, amongst a lot of other things. And, a lot of people came up to me after AJ's funeral and just was like, I really felt what you were saying, and I'm suffering too. How can I get some help? What do I need to do? And, that's how I just kind of, turned into, my foundation.
A lot of times people don't even understand with depression that they're going through it. Was AJ, when he was struggling, it seems like he confided in you. Is that accurate, that he confided in you? Sure. And so was he able to name it, or was he just like, man, I'm really sad, or I'm really angry, or I'm really lost or lonely? How did he communicate what he was feeling, or was he able to communicate to you?
Yeah, he was able to tell me, like, how he felt about himself, that he didn't feel like he was even supposed to, kind of be here, or he just didn't. It was to a point where he lost a lot of respect for himself, and I mean, he was just so depressed that he didn't even want to be seen in public. And he felt like, we would go out, and, I would try to, just get him to, just come out and have fun. Just be social, like just sit here and talk to us while we're out. He didn't want to do that. And, like it looks tough, because you see a person, maybe even a year, 2 years before, and it's a complete 360. And you can never underestimate the power of a traumatic event, or, different events in somebody's life, and how that can, influence and impact them. And I think at the time that was something that I underestimated. And I'll be the first to tell people, like, I'm not, perfect when it comes to mental health. It wasn't until, his death to where I really kind of, understood it and want to understand more about it, and reach out and get resources. But I would say, common things like, like, AJ, snap out of it, or AJ, it's not that bad, or AJ, like, you can get through this. I would say stuff like that, but not knowing that, the internal battle that he was really fighting every day, and not knowing the severity of it. And, no matter how many different resources I tried to get for him, it just wasn't anything that could really connect with him the right way.
And I think that's the story for so many of us, that grow up, especially people that look like us. And, we don't have conversations growing up necessarily where we're talking about mental health. So we don't really understand it and the severity of it and how it can get away from us. When you mentioned the church and just praying it away and stuff, it reminds me of when people, there were some videos with the social distancing, people are going to church from home. Right. But there were some people that decided, I still want to, my church is open. I still want to go to my church, and like Jesus will heal me. Like, well, like Jesus will take care of you and help you. But there's also stay home and pray. And there are other things that go into this other than just prayer. And I think, with mental health, it's hard for people who have grown up thinking or not acknowledging or understanding what mental health is and that it is a thing, to understand the complexities of it, and that it is something just like, it's a pandemic, this coronavirus, and it's a national crisis, with mental health and with suicide. The suicide rates, are rising. But, when you talk about trauma, it's traumatic to lose someone that's close to you. And it's traumatic to lose someone, especially when it's by suicide that's close to you. And, I attempted suicide, and I saw how traumatic it was for my sister, whom I'm very close to. But with her, I survived. And so we were able to talk about it, and she was able to work through that trauma and heal. How did you work through the trauma of AJ's death and how that made you feel, and then put yourself in a position where you were able to use it for good and to be able to help other people that may be in similar situations as you, as AJ?
For me, I'm kind of a social butterfly. I kind of gravitate towards, interaction with other humans. How I got through his traumatic experience, I just kind of talk. This is what I do. Like, I love talking about it. I love going out and sharing, my experiences and sharing the relationship that we had. And that's how I remember him. Like, I tell his parents all the time. His parents come to all my charitable events, and I tell them, like, even though, AJ may have died, like, his legacy and his life will live on forever. And that, even though he died, we will try to help as many other people as we can that may be going through some of the same things as AJ's going through. So that's how I kind of get through it. My brother, he's also a social worker. So I spent some time talking with him, on a daily basis about different things. But for me, it's just actions like this. And this is like my own form of counseling, like just being able to speak about it, speak out on awareness about mental health, and just be able to provide some help for other people.
Absolutely. One thing about your career that a lot of us who played sports can relate to is injuries.
Yeah.
No one plans for injuries, but they happen. It's something we all know is part of sports and a possibility, but you still can't plan for it. You can't plan for the way you feel. You can't plan for the process of, I've worked so hard toward this. Now my reality is physical therapy and the sideline and working to get back to a point that you had hit so long ago. And it's just a whole different challenge. You went to your second mini camp for the Jets right after the passing of AJ and suffered a season-ending injury before the season even started. You tore your pec.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of people right now are trying to deal with the sudden pause, the fact that they couldn't plan for this pandemic. They couldn't plan. They don't even know how long they're going to be home right now. And, for you, I think it's compounded. Their kids are home. They don't have work. They don't know where their next meal is coming from. So it can feel like a snowball effect, and they can't, stop it or understand how to deal with it. And that's when you see, I think, a lot of people struggle with some mental health issues. For you, how did you really navigate the combination of your season-ending injury before your season even started, and then it was so soon after something so traumatic in a friend's suicide? How did you come to terms with all of that and process all of that and work through that? Because you had nothing, with injuries, you have nothing but time.
Yeah. So that was definitely some pretty severe back-to-back blows. Losing my best friend, and then, losing what I thought was at the time my identity, which was football. So, I was always taught this. I've heard this from my parents. I even heard it from like Nick Saban and like Bill Belichick, the 24-hour rule. So what I did, once I found out that I was going to be out for the season, I really took like 24 hours and sometimes a little bit longer to really just sit and kind of, cry, like mope, be sad about it. And then after that 24 hours was over, I tried to develop a plan. Like, how can I use this time that I have, this platform that I have, I'm still on the team, even though I'm not playing. What can I do with this opportunity that I have? And after about, a day of sitting there thinking and crying and being sad and kind of depressed about not being able to, live out my dream on the field and not be able to accomplish, the goals that I've worked for so much this entire off season. And what I felt like was going to be the best way to honor AJ is by playing on the field. At the time, I came up with the entire plan, and it took me 2 days to come up with it. My first thing that I wanted to do was go back to school. So I already had my undergraduate degree in political science, and I was already through like one semester of my master's in public administration. I called school, Appalachian State, the next day after I suffered my season-ending injury, and I told them I wanted to get back in school. I told the head coach, Todd Bowles, that I wanted to go back home and rehab and go back to school and finish up with school. And they said, yeah, and yes, that I could. So I did that, started back and, had surgery, started physical therapy maybe the week after that. I started back in school and in classes. And then, so I got going with that and still, I still felt an empty spot, just trying to figure out, how to live without my best friend. Like, what can I do? And so I just started reaching out to different organizations like NAMNI. I started there. I was just, sitting on the computer one night and just Googled mental health and saw NAMNI. And I reached out to different locations, and I just sat and met with people. And they gave me some ideas of how I could, go on and remember my best friend and do things to honor him. And that's when I became, heavily involved with NAMNI. I led one of their awareness walks in North Carolina that year. I did a huge charitable event that year for mental health, in my own hometown. And I just, started spending a lot of time with student athletes and young kids that were just like me, just grew up in the same environment that I did. And pretty much I just took all the time and opportunity that I had and focused it somewhere else. And that helped me a ton. And to be honest with you, it felt like more enjoyable, more honorable to be doing that than actually playing the game of football at that time. And, the advice that I would give some people during this is, this is an unprecedented time that we're going through. This is a very, tough moment that we're going through, So take the time to be sad about it. Take the time to, be in a slump about it. But, after, 24 hours, 48 hours, develop a plan to where you can help, support and put food on the table for your family, because, that's what you got to do. At this, if you don't do it, you can't count on the government to do it. You can't count on, your friends to do it. It's just where we are. And this is one of the stuff that when we're in school, we're reading about it in history books. Like this is what we're living right now. And this is a very tough moment. And, I say that with compassion because I understand like how tough it is for people to put food on their tables. I understand how tough it is to manage your kids being home and still having to work. And, even if you lost your job, just, unemployment, just it's so many things that you have to go through right now. But at the end of the day, it's what we got to do. It's what we got to do to survive. It's what we got to do, to keep our family going. It's what we got to do to keep our legacy going. And that's why I always say the 24-hour rule. I mean, I don't think anything is worth skipping over. Like if you don't, mourn the loss of your best friend, if you don't spend time acknowledging what has just happened, it's always going to be, in the back of your head, and you'll never be able to overcome it. And for me, I just sit and think about, whatever that event was for 24, 48 hours. And then after that, I kind of use it to motivate me and get me out whatever situation that I'm in.
Absolutely. It sounds like I heard you say you defined yourself at that point when you experienced that injury, your
Yeah.
purpose. You defined your purpose through football. And it sounds like being forced to step away from that. It sounds like you experienced a lot of growth. And, and again, don't let me put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you grew from that experience. And just like people are having a hard time now, and these are real things and they're serious things and they're tough, important things. Your stuff was a tough, important stuff. You lost a friend in a very difficult way. And I think it's to be able to see that there can be growth in the most difficult of times, I think is important because it provides hope. And right now, that's something that's so key right now that people need so much of, because it can be, if you sit home alone or you don't have a whole bunch going on, you can let hopelessness consume you, and that can put you in a really dark place.
Yeah. That moment, that year of my life is probably when I've seen the most growth out of any part of my life. I grew as a human being. I grew, as a student. I grew as a professional. And I didn't grow as much as a football player because I wouldn't really, spend as much time focus on football. But at someday football is going to end, and everything has to become secondary. So for me, I took some time to focus on what does football look like when it's over, and the same thing that everybody else has to do, and hopefully they can grow from what does it look like when I don't have my job? How am I going to provide for my family then? What do I do? And I was put in that position, who am I? I'm not on the football field playing on Sundays right now. What am I doing? And, I just really took pride in being able to define myself outside of football. I really take a lot of seriousness in, my education and helping other kids, student athletes. And that's something that I want to do, for the rest of my life, even after football's over. And I also take a lot of pride in I enjoy politics. That's something that, I plan to maybe get into, at least some type of government work. But, speaking for people who can't speak for themselves, that's something that I've always took pride in, since I was a little kid. And for me, having this opportunity to take some time and really and see who I am outside of football without the game of football, it made me grow a lot. And I'm sure that a lot of people, during this pandemic will grow, a lot also.
Absolutely. There's something to be said. I think that's an experience for a lot of us. I grew a ton, more than I've ever grown in my life, after being forced. When we're forced to stop and think and spend times with ourselves, it forces us to be comfortable with ourselves or get uncomfortable with ourselves and figure out how to get comfortable. And there's so much growth that happens in that. For you, you're a guy, like I mentioned before, you went to Appalachian State, a group of 5 program, went undrafted, experienced a season-ending injury before the start of your second year. No one expects you to be a guy that starts on Sundays. Those expectations, go down. But for you come back in year 3 with the Jets and you have an opportunity to start. And it looks like, wow, this guy has worked hard. He's grown off the field. He's worked hard on the field and he's achieved this. And, it's turning around for him. And then you tear another pectoral muscle and are out for another season. And I've heard you, speak previously and call that your rock bottom and say that, depression started to set in and that you started drinking alcohol every night and using that as a way to cope. I think right now a lot of people, like we've mentioned, are dealing with a lot of heavy stuff. and there aren't things they feel like they can't catch a break. You know, I can't go to work. I can't provide for my family. My kids are driving me crazy, whatever it is. They have all of this stuff and it's all just consuming them. But liquor stores are open. That's one of the things that we have. And so that option of I'm going to go stock up and get some alcohol and dull this pain is something that a lot of people right now are undoubtedly struggling with and experiencing. For you, how did you stop that, destructive cycle of drinking every night, come through the depression? And I even heard you say that you wondered, like, maybe this isn't it. Maybe the NFL, maybe football, it's not going to work out. Kind of like, feeling that sense of like, maybe I want to quit creeping in. But how did you overcome the depression, the drinking, and really that feeling of being defeated and really get back to work after everything, not just that, but everything, to grow and then to be like, man, like I'm supposed to win now. How did you come through that? How did you work through all of that?
Yeah. To be honest with you, that moment was definitely my rock bottom. And it was definitely the toughest moment of my life, even after my best friend passing, suffering a season ending injury the first time. Yeah, I can just remember being in my car at the facility once they told me that, I had just torn my other pet after really going through all that I went through and then making it back to the point to where I was a starter now and I was finally getting the opportunity that I felt like I worked for. And then now all of a sudden it was being taken away again. And at that moment, I really just hit it. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to hear anybody's, oh, this is the good that can come out of it. I didn't want to hear anything like that. Like, I was just really, confused. Like, I had no clue what God was trying to show me. I had no clue what, God was trying to do for me at this point in my life. And I just didn't even know if, like, I was really contemplating, like, not even playing football anymore. Like, that's how bad it was. And it was to the point where, like, I didn't want to have anything to do with football. Like, I wanted to just go ahead and start my career, with my degree and see where it would go from there. And I would attribute, my progress to my family. You can't do anything in life alone. And the moment that you think you can is when God or life will provide you with something in life that you can't handle it all by yourself. And this injury was something that I couldn't handle by myself. And, I started to gravitate towards, alcohol, just to kind of numb the pain of something that that I felt like I've worked so much for. Like, I put literally everything into coming back and being a professional athlete again. Like, it's not easy. Not only for a star player to do it, but a guy who, went to a small school, a guy that, went undrafted, a guy that you don't as an undrafted athlete, you don't even have that many opportunities to start with, then suffering, back-to-back season injuries and making it back from that. It's a lot of pain. It's a lot of dedication that even went to me getting to that point. But I would say that what really helped me is my family and friends being able to notice the differences and the changes in my life. And it was a lot of friends that would tell me, like, hey, like you starting to drink a lot. Like you're not even drinking like just to have a good time now. Like something's like going on. Like, you're drinking a lot more than usual. And having those people that are aware of the changes in your life, and having that, that group that you can count on that can actually be, real with you and not just, be your friends when things are good and tell you a bunch of good stuff. Like, people that can tell you how it is. And, that's what I had. And, my parents, my girl, my brother, like, those people were able to help me, get my life back on track and really see, like, you know, where I could recover, how I could recover from this. And because mentally, I'm not even gonna lie to you. Like, I was such in a bad state that I really didn't know what was next for me. And you know, the encouragement that I would give people is, like, you know, like I always say, like, understand the events that you're going through. Like, have respect for it. Like, don't just act like it's, you know, like it's nothing. Like, understand that, you know, I'm going through a tough event right now. I'm struggling right now, and acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And then after that, try to come up with a plan. Like, you know, gravitate to people around you that can help and be your support and help you come up with a plan to be successful. And that's what I did. Like, I went through a lot of tough moments, but I identified some people that really care about me and some people that can really, you know, help get me out of tough spots, because, I mean, you can't do it alone. It's impossible. I mean, you can't just count on yourself to get you out of every situation. It can't just be you and God. Like, it has to be you, God, and others, you know, and that's what it was for me. And that's how I was able to, you know, put my drinking behind me. Like, I still enjoy, you know, having a few drinks, but it was to the point where it was a lot more than just a few drinks. It was kind of getting disgusting, to be honest. But, you know, at that point in my life, that's how I felt. And, you know, that's the type of things I was going through.
Yeah. I mean, as athletes, you always want to, you know, practice discipline. And when you feel that getting away from you with something like drinking, you know, that, you know, we're not always able to identify that. So the fact that you leaned on people to say, like, hey man, this is bad. And you're like, oh man, like, I got to do something before this becomes something where I'm too far gone to crawl my way out of it. No. So there's a lot that, I mean, again, your story, everything that you've come through, and the fact you can still see, you know, you say, you know, trust me, that time is hard. I see it on your face. When I, you know, talk about that moment, it's almost like you went back there. But
yeah, and this is my fault. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's not, it wasn't, I mean, it's family and friends, it's spiritually, like what I'm doing now. Like, I spend a lot of time with student athletes at my school, and a lot of them are in situations where they don't understand their value. You know, they don't understand, like, why they're there. They don't understand, you know, why God has put them you know, put them in that situation. And for me, that's how I was at that point. You know, I didn't understand why God was putting me in that situation. I didn't understand why He's taking the game from me again for the second time. And yeah, a lot of good came from that opportunity, but I didn't see it at that time. You know, I wasn't even focused on it at that time. And you know, it's a lot of friends, but you got to really remember, like, you know, what do you want out of your life? You know, and that was the thing for me. Like, what do I want people to remember about me? What do I want? What I want for my life, for my family? Like, what do I want to accomplish? And the moment that you lose all your motivation, the moment that you lose all your goals and dreams, and the moment that you feel like you're not waking up for something, is the moment where you just, you know, you lose it all. And that's where I was at. Like, I felt like I wasn't waking up to be, you know, the best player I could be. I felt like I wasn't waking up to be, you know, whatever I could be off the field. Like, I wasn't there anymore. And it just took, you know, myself, it took, you know, my family and friends and helping me re-identify myself and re-identify my motivation and purpose in life. And, you know, once I was able to do that, I was able to get things back on track.
Yeah. And I think that's something a lot of people can relate to right now. Your foundation that you've mentioned a few times, the Dream the Impossible initiative, created, you know, in honor of your friend, AJ Morrison, works in underserved communities with children to get the word out, to provide awareness for mental health. And, you know, growing up for me in a sports world, my coaches talked about mental toughness. We talked about how to create habits, how to work hard and do those things to become successful at your sport. But we didn't talk about mental health. I don't know if I knew what it was or acknowledged it as a real thing. And, you know, as I know and as I've experienced, it is a very real thing. What are the ages of the kids and the people that you work with? Is it all ages? And what have those conversations been like? And what have you really learned from them about, you know, where they're at? Because there's something beautiful to be said about young people that have the ability to be open to learning. Whereas when you become 20, 30, whatever, it's more difficult to say, no, mental health is real. You've got to be vulnerable when you're not used to doing that. So what have these kids maybe taught you about mental health and some of these things that seem very difficult for some people in these communities, like, you know, that you've come from, that I've come from, where it's so challenging for us as adults, but, you know, maybe it's not that way for them. I don't know. You got to tell me.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I just love working with young kids because, like, it's not like they don't want to. It's just the fact that they don't know, you know, and they only know what their parents are teaching them. So until you come and teach them and show them, you know how it's supposed to be, they're just going to do with, you know, what they feel like is comfortable, you know. And I really enjoy, you know, working with kids, and the fact that, like, I remember one, you know, the first charitable event I did, the Let the Light Shine celebration. I wrote down, like, a lot of the stuff that, you know, I just kind of asked them, like, what do you want for Christmas? And we kind of got them everything that they wanted on a Christmas list. And one girl asked for an air mattress because she didn't really have anywhere to sleep, you know. And, you know, the teacher brung her there, and she said, yeah, she doesn't really talk much, but, you know, I brung her here because I feel like I could, you know, you could help her get her out of her shell. So I met her, you know, as soon as she got there, and the way she just opened up to me was beautiful. Like, at first she was so nervous about, you know, where she was going to go to high school, that she had shifted, you know, schools a few different times, moving around with family. And, you know, by the end of the night, she was already excited to talk about college. She wanted to go to Appalachian State. She wanted to be successful in a lot of other things in life. And these kids they're so vulnerable. Like, they're so much different, I would say, than our generation. Like, I feel like sometimes we're a little bit more closed off, and, like, you know, we're trying to, you know, protect a lot of our, you know, emotions. But social media has these kids so wide open, they can really, like, just go and say whatever they want. And even though, you know, I feel like it is a lot tougher for them as kids, mainly because they're being compared so much more because of social media, like Instagram. Like, you're comparing how many likes you get, you comparing how many followers you get, you comparing, you know, you can just see things on social media so much faster than you would, you know, without it, you know, like, and it's making, you know, kids feel, you know, sometimes bad about themselves. And, but I would definitely say, like, working with them, it's shown me that how to be vulnerable. It showed me that it's okay to reach out and get help. It's okay. You know, I feel like they've taught me more than I've taught them. And, you know, the more I spend with them and the more I realize that, you know, especially for kids in my community, it's not about the fact that they don't want to be successful. It's not the fact that they don't want to be great. It's what they're accessible to.
Yeah.
And as soon as you provide them with resources and show them what success looks like, they'll work as hard as they can to attain it. And a lot of the kids, like, you know, last year or my second year doing an event, we brought a lot of, you know, successful people in to show the kids what it looks like to attain success without being an athlete, without being a rapper, you know, without, you know, some of the things that they see all the time. Like, let me show you something else. Let me show you what, you know, a successful teacher looks like. Let me show you what a successful financial advisor looks like. Let me show you what a successful lawyer, doctor, you know, things that they may not have known about. And, you know, just putting them on the panel and letting them just ask them whatever questions they wanted, and, you know, about their journey, about, you know, what made them want to, you know, get into that career. And, you know, these kids leave and they leave motivated. They leave ready to, you know, to achieve a success that maybe nobody in their family knew about. You know, you're talking about, you know, still first generation college students, but still people that, I mean, they don't have much access besides some of the things that they see on TV. And, for them, they think, sports is like their biggest heroes. And for me, like, I'm telling them, I say, you can be so much more than, an athlete. And that's kind of the message that I preach every time. And so we're more on the preventative side, with, when it comes to mental health. We're not really on the reactive side. So we try to focus on young kids, young adolescents that's, really 10 to 16 and teach them basic practices of how, to care about your mental health and know that your mental health is just as important as your physical health.
So I lost you for a second there. This is part of this pandemic, all this uncertainty, things happen. But no, thank you so much for the incredible work you're doing, for this message you're putting out there. So these kids that are coming after us really understand how to be better than us, be better than the people who, came before us, and really experience less pain to be able to learn some wonderful lessons, but not have to learn it through such difficult experiences. So thank you for joining me. I've learned a lot. I appreciate it, and I hope other people learn too.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. You've asked some great questions, and filled me with a lot of emotions. So I definitely appreciate, you taking the time to do this.
No, of course.